I work to live, I don't live to work. Contrary to popular belief, what's not a bad thing? Being basic in the sense that you have likes and hobbies similar to a group of people. I feel even in the sense of being a basic girl with Starbucks and skinny jeans and Uggs. Just because it's a popular thing and is comfortable doesn't mean it's bad. Anyone who calls someone else basic in a demeaning way is essentially saying, look at me. Look at how different I am, everyone. Aren't I special? Especially since edginess is mainstream now and most people who claim to not be basic all have the same interests. Somebody who changes their beliefs. Changing your mind or opinion about something, political or otherwise, is absolutely valid. It's not a bad thing to be slow changing your beliefs when faced with a seemingly compelling argument or new evidence. A lot of people seem to think that changing your beliefs on a dime is the mark of being an rational, intellectually honest person. But if you're trying to be a critical thinker in the first place, then your previous position likely came from a lot of research, consideration of possible counter-arguments and stress testing of your position. If you encounter someone online, or elsewhere, who seems to disprove a position you came to through that kind of effort, there's nothing wrong with giving that same amount of effort and scrutiny to the new information. And that normally takes time and thought. It's not rare for me to see a piece of evidence or an argument that I can't counter in the moment and seems potentially compelling. But then a little research might show things that negate it that I might not even have known to look for without doing some thought and research. Saying no when someone asks you to do them a favor. If you always say yes, you are not standing up for yourself. My first solid unapologetic no was to a woman who just wanted to see my notes in class, college as a non-trad, so late in life. I knew she wanted to cheat off of me and I had enough. I cannot tell you how good it felt after. Someone took my side and it was me. Pick your moment and give it a try. No other discourse planned. Just hold their gaze. Hold a little longer to be certain. And then gauge how you feel after. Adjust future no's as necessary. GMO in food. Without GMOs, corn wouldn't be edible. Watermelons would have way less flesh. Bananas would be vastly different. If you hate artificial banana flavor, you'd hate original bananas. Certain crops would yield far less and would much more susceptible to disease. Livestock would be far more expensive and less available. This could actually be a really good thing in reality. But at the time, meat being readily available was a huge game changer. Broccoli doesn't even exist in nature. It's a GMO, yet people don't fearmonger about it because most haven't realized it. The panic around GMOs is based in the appeal to nature fallacy. It boils down to a lack of understanding of genetics. If you change the genes of an organism, and then eat it, it can change your genes too. The horror. In reality, it's more like what happens if wild wheat is now a little more resistant to drought. Breakups. Sometimes it's better to end things instead of trying to hold a failing relationship together. Spent almost 13 years with someone I thought I could spend my life with. We had our ups and downs, but it was the fundamental move forward and lack of ambition that did it for me. He was content with things always the same routine, same everything. I needed to accept that that would not work for me and I gave up a bunch of myself to try and make it work and I suffered. It is honestly a relief to have found someone that I can be myself with. Married now for almost 3 years. Don't compromise your own goals just to make someone else happy. Being alone. It can be far less stressful than having other people around. Not to mention we live in an insanely good time for being alone. I love it. I can do whatever the hell I want. My mother always asks me if I don't feel lonely, why I don't meet up with friends and all that crap. Mother, I don't need to go out and drink until I pass out like you did my age. I just need myself, my console and my music and I am happy. Not that I'm trying to twist being alone as a positive or something. Because I think for most people it absolutely is not, but if you're into that then you couldn't be living in a better time. The internet has made it so that you can practically never be bored even when alone. Breaking tradition. It's important to question why we do things and not just go along with it because it's been like that for years. I literally cannot stand phrases like this. Who cares? I don't give two damns if this is how you did it in the 80s, it's literally 40 years later and you're just too stupid to come up with or accept a better way of doing things. It doesn't make me just a millennial, I'm 30 years old and here to tell you dumb idiot that your way is stupid. Being frugal. I think being able to control spending habits, save money, and being able to assess what items are necessary versus excessive in one's life is often overlooked in a consumerist society. Until this year, I was using my iPhone 4 happily. Friends and family would constantly make jokes about my ancient phone and how I am just too cheap to buy a new one. The truth was that it was still working fine and fulfilling all the needs I had for a phone. So why spend money to replace something that is still working? Someone replied, "My annual household income is currently less than $50,000, that will be changing and hopefully more than doubling soon. Thank heavens. But my partner and I, in the past year and a half, have saved more than $20,000. It's literally just by being frugal. We live comfortably, have a great life together, and go on awesome trips regularly, pre-lockdown, but we live well under our means and it's blessed us tremendously. Compare that to my family of origin, who makes $250,000 per year and regularly borrow large sums of money from us because they can't live within their means." Not going to college is not a bad thing. I say this with some level of authority on the matter as I am a college professor, full-time, tenured, over a decade into the game. I have seen hundreds of students go to college who have no interest in learning. They go because they are told they have to in order to secure personal success and financial stability. So many of these students fail classes, destroy their GPA, don't graduate, take out a ton of loans, etc. There are so many people with college degrees working in food service, retail, hospitality, etc. And none of them really needed a college degree at all. Yet they have one, they paid a ton for it, and now have to pay all those loans back for something they aren't using. And I get it. No time learning is time wasted. I truly believe that. But you don't need to be in college to learn. If you major in physics but refuse to leave your town of 20,000 people and have no interest in teaching, it doesn't matter if you got a 4.0, you'll be working slinging pizzas regardless. Not being into social media doesn't mean you are behind the times. It's a choice. So many of us deal with the pressures of either not being on certain social media platforms, or using it as we see fit, with the strength of making our own decisions and not bowing down to preset norms. I don't need to post 80 pictures a day of what I'm doing on Snapchat, and I'm not going to post on Facebook or Instagram unless I want to share something. I just like being able to send memes to my friends without having to save them to my phone. Some people don't get that. Not being super ambitious about your work. I respect people who have high drive and want to work their butt off and move up. But it's not actually necessary or always worth it. I used to have big money dreams as a kid cause I grew up poor. The closer I got to adulthood and ever since entering the workforce, I tossed those out. I don't want the stress of maintaining that high pressure work ethic. Now all I want is to have a lower stress job that pays me enough money to afford bills and add to my savings and allows me to afford to take a few spontaneous weekend getaways a year. My hobbies fulfill me. I work to live, I don't live to work. I don't have any big career goals and I don't want any. I'm happy just doing a steady day by day at work 4 to 5 days a week and then spending my actual energy on my hobbies and going off on occasional adventures around the country. My current retail shift manager job affords me that and I'm happy to settle in here for the time being. Contentment. I not only don't need an exciting life, I actively don't want one. One of my friends loves to travel and do crazy stuff, scuba diving, swimming with sharks, going on days-long backpacking trips. Not at all for me. She cannot fathom the fact I don't care for travel. My friend is like, for the money you spent on that TV, Xbox, surround sound, etc., you could have traveled Europe with me. You won't remember the TV when you're old. Things of that nature. I'll get a lot more use out of my home theater than a 2-week trip to Europe. I like watching movies and playing games. I shouldn't have to constantly be shamed for that. Being single. This past week I discovered a job that would be a fantastic opportunity, but would move me halfway around the world. That doesn't bother me, but being in a relationship would definitely make that more complicated. A large part of why I'm still single is so I can do stuff like decide to pack up and move across the world on a whim if I so chose. This and a ton of other advantages. Defending yourself against a customer who is extremely rude. Agreed. I was at Michael's before Christmas and while standing in line this lady told the cashier that she'd be much prettier without all her piercing or tattoos. The cashier just laughed it off but the customer kept at it and wouldn't shut up. I eventually told the customer "F off you judgmental witch" and she was so flustered that she quickly paid and left. The cashier looked fine and was clearly rocking her own style. When it was my turn I apologized to the cashier for my outburst and she thanked me and told me I said what she wanted to but couldn't risk her job. Seriously, the person who is probably making minimum wage at a retail job doesn't deserve to be shouted at, and no one deserves to be judged on their appearance like that. Giving up. Sometimes giving up is the best thing you can do. This is called sunken cost fallacy. I've put so much work into this, I can't stop now. If something isn't working out and you can't see it getting any better in the future, there's no shame or harm in giving up and moving on. Giving up actually can be harder than continuing for some things. In a bad relationship, it's extremely hard to give up trying to fix it and move on, because you keep thinking you'll be more unhappy without the person. Let's say you purchased an excellent cut of marbled Wagyu meat. It was a big investment of time and money. But things happened, and when you got around to cook it, you realized that the meat had turned. It was slimy and foul. A rational person throws it away, despite all the money and time invested. Despite the storage time in the fridge, it was better to throw it away, and not spend a second more time or money on it, or you risk poisoning yourself and others. So the thinking goes, before you keep investing time or money, check the meat. If you wouldn't purchase the meat in the condition it is currently in, don't keep putting time and money and effort into it. Just because you have invested a lot in something does not mean you should keep investing in it. If the only reason you are investing in it is because you already have, then it's probably time to bail. Disappointing your parents or friends by your life decisions. Usually, they come around in time when they see what you chose is what makes you happy, and that is what they really wanted in the end anyway. It can be an uncomfortable wait until that time comes, but it is shorter and feels better than a lifetime of regret. My dad was adamant that I go into a safe major in college. I had always been a creative type into high school theater, and that's what I wanted to do. But, since he was paying for college, I relented and went into civil engineering. I hated it. I lasted less than a year before I switched my major to theater production. My parents were none too happy about it, thinking I'd live my life on friends' couches and delivering pizza, although they still supported me. Fast forward 23 years. I've only worked in entertainment production since the day I changed majors. My siblings went the safe route. I make more than them and my parents combined, have enough saved in the bank and investments that I could live for the next 10 years almost without a paycheck, and absolutely love what I do. Both of my siblings have either moved back home or lost their homes due to lack of income, pre-lockdown. Thankfully, my parents did come back and say they were proud of me for following my dream and making it. Choosing an unmarried or unpartnered life. I truly believe that being in a long-term relationship where you have to live together for life just isn't for everybody. For some, it's better to have a series of long relationships or shorter ones. There are people who want to live together, and some who don't. A life without romance is just fine for some people, too. It's true that life alone can be harder in the way the world is made up. It's mostly so two people can share the load, so you need to be creative or just live with it. As to having children, there are so many ways to be a parent these days. Just being in a single two-parent unit isn't the only option anymore. You can have a kid on your own, or with other people, but not be married to them or even live with them. And you don't have to have one or two-parent families. For some, opting out of the lifelong love roommate path will mean giving up the joy of children and grandchildren. But if they are willing to give that up for the life that fits them better, they shouldn't be shamed for it or feel they need to turn into someone who is anti-child. I'd love to have had children, but it just didn't fit into my lifestyle should be just as acceptable an answer as, I would have loved to have had a jet-setting career, but I chose to focus on having a family instead. Asking for help. As a first-time mother, this was my biggest downfall. At 3 weeks old, we had prioritized my husband's sleep schedule since he was back to work. I was unable to breastfeed, and had to pump while feeding my daughter. To top it all off, my daughter was colicky. She once spent 7 hours straight crying. I eventually collapsed crying, asking for help. I was so exhausted. She wasn't sleeping more than an hour or two. I took over all the feedings, pumping every 3 hours, and staying home by myself all day. Honestly, having the babies isn't the hardest part. Keeping your sanity and asking for help is. Thanks for listening to Radio TTS. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to not be basic. Click the right box for the related playlist. Let us know in the comments what you think about these beliefs.